You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, joining me as he does every Monday for a Money Monday. Lindsay, Crosby, the Auburn banker himself. What a great weekend for the Auburn Tigers.
I got to tell you, this is one, you love a victory Monday, but Auburn just completely shutting the door on Arkansas was a great way to close out the weekend. Man.
Yeah. I mean, the way they did it, they started out strong. They lost that middle eight, and then they kind of got that momentum back and took care of business. I mean, the opening drive was beautiful. The receivers really stepped up. The defense got stops when it needed it. And really, outside of the running game, I liked everything that I saw from the Auburn Tigers on Saturday against Arkansas.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, came out strong. Middle eight, little bit of a struggle. And then after the middle eight, the end of the third, fourth quarter, completely shut down Arkansas on whatever they tried to do. I've got some great stats here I'll share in a little bit. Just really domination there from Auburn.
Right. So, let's start with the offense, and we'll talk more about Bo Nix specifically later in the show. But he looked great. Road Bo. I mean, that whole storyline may be dead now, which is great. That's great news for Auburn fans. The running game. Let's start there. Then the running game, I think, was still. I mean, we talked about this last week. So many folks were like, yeah, Auburn should be able to run all over Arkansas. And I asked the question, it's like, well, what if they don't? Because they were supposed to run all over LSU as well, and they did not. And I don't think this is a good running team. And that's okay, because when your quarterback plays like he did on Saturday, you can get away with more things.
Yeah, 3.9 a carry, and that includes some of Bo's runs in there. Not what you've seen other teams do against Arkansas. You thought we'd do better, but I mean, when you're 21 to 26 passing, you don't have to have an amazing running game. Now, is that going to come back and hurt Auburn a little bit later in the season? It has the potential to, but against Arkansas, Bo Nix and his right arm were enough to get the job done. Fantastic performance, and the running game was nobody had success. It wasn't like we've seen in the past sometimes where Tank struggles a bit because they're loading the box against him, but Jarquez breaks a couple. That kind of stuff. Jarquez Hunter, 10 carries, 28 yards. Tank Bigsby, 18 carries for 69 yards. Nice. The good news is each one of those guys only had one negative carry. So they're getting positive yardage, just not a lot.
Right.
I think Jarquez's longest carry is 8 yards. Tank's is maybe 17. So they're not breaking off anything big. It's just short gains. And then, so Bo Nix had to pick it up and do it himself.
Yeah, and I guess both those negative carries were on big plays. I think they were both on third down. So You hate that. But I don't know how you fix the running game overnight. And Auburn's going into a bye week, and boy, it is perfect time for a bye week, especially with Ole Miss coming up. So, and Ole Miss has to play LSU next weekend. So I think Auburn's in a good situation there. But this team's a little beat up. You need Owen Papo back. Austin Troxell didn't start on Saturday at left tackle. Killian Zaire, I thought, did a pretty good job filling in because you didn't really notice it. If you're an offensive lineman and you no one notices you, you did a good job. That's your goal, is to blend in and just kind of be part of the game flow. And I think he was. So props to the offensive line as a whole, outside of a few false starts. That just kind of seems to be a thing that we're going to have to deal with this team, is they're going to jump off sides, especially on the road or at home. I mean, I think you can blame the crowd noise because it sounded like it was pretty loud up there in Fayetteville, but it happens at home too. So I think that's just going to kind of be something that we've got to deal with this football team.
It's so weird that the only place we haven't really seen a lot of procedure penalties from the offensive line is at Penn State, which is kind of weird. We had more false starts at home against Alabama State than we did at Penn State. But then we had them in Baton Rouge. We had them in Fayetteville. We've had them at home. And so pretty much just assume it's going to be probably 2 or 3 a game where crowd noise or some sort of miscommunication about the snap count gets to the offensive line. Zaire did have one procedure penalty, but other than that, he played a really good game. Felt like he was really good in pass protection as well. So that may be something. Austin Troxell may have gotten Wally pipped on that. He may lose his job.
Possibly. And that's something we talked about in the fall, because I think a lot of fans didn't want Troxel to start, but I think he's done fine. Is he great?
Mm-hmm.
No, I think he's serviceable. But this whole offensive line appears to be better at pass protection than run blocking. And I think that's been okay, especially now that Bo Nix is a little bit more consistent than we've seen him be in years past. But all in all, I think that's all right. As far as the receivers in the receiving game, though, man, like awesome performances. Practice, Shedrick Jackson showed up, which is huge. Natural wide receiver Kobe Hudson getting things off early. So natural.
So natural.
To him first play from scrimmage. It's like, give it to me. Let's go. Demetrius Robertson had a huge play. I think he led Auburn in receiving on Saturday. And then Javarius Johnson, that strike to open up the game. I mean, there's just a lot to like. And Bo Nix, and I'm sure this was more than Bo. I'm sure it was game plan, Mike Harsin and Mike Bobo and Brian Harsin. I think all of those guys kind of work together on an awesome game plan to spread the football around. And that's what we talked about going into the season, right? Is make guys prepare for everything. And it's starting to come together, Lindsay. I think Auburn fans should be really, really excited about that big win in Fayetteville because of things like this. You're starting to see this vision that we were promised by this coaching staff come together. And that's a big deal.
Yeah, Auburn did well with both the short, quick passes. Kobe Hudson had a few like quick hitters right after the snap, give him a chance to run in space. We saw so natural. We saw deep passes, with Demetrius Robertson, 71-yarder. Short King Javarius Johnson has a 39-yard touchdown. And then we saw 4 different tight ends catch the ball. And I'm not a statistician. That may be an Auburn record. 4 tight ends catching the ball in one game. I mean, we saw Landon King, 2 catches, 23 yards. Luke Deal, 4 catches for 19. Shanker caught 1. Tyler Fromm caught 1. And it's like, if you had asked me, is Auburn going to have 10 different guys catch the football in a game? I'd have told you you're crazy. But that's what happened on Saturday in Fayetteville. And it's hard for the defense to key on any one specific player when you've got 10 guys who have caught the ball in a game, because you have to cover every blade of grass. You have to cover all 5 guys on every play. And that's just not something we've seen a lot from an Auburn football team in the last decade.
Oh, you don't see that anywhere. I mean, that's really, really hard to do. And so props to Auburn and props to this coaching staff for developing that depth and that arsenal.
Hey, got him.
I've been impressed with Landon King. His emergence over the last few weeks has been really, really fun. I wish he would have made that catch from Bo Nix. I believe it was a 3rd down play where Bo was scrambling and he found him last second before he went down. I wish he would have caught that, because I think that could have been
explosive.
It could have been a touchdown. I mean, it would have been a big play. It would have been for over 20 yards. But that's really like the biggest nitpick I have with the receivers is 2 drops. I think they were both from tight ends. So I think, just based when you compare it to what happened the week previously against Georgia, it just looked like a different football team.
Now, and the thing that I will point out is watch some of the Kentucky-Georgia game yesterday. And I felt like a lot of Kentucky had more drops than they usually do. So, part of that may just have been the Georgia defenders interfering with the play, getting in there. But either way, you love to see a bounce back game from the receivers like that. Just weird that we had 2 drops from tight ends, but that's it. The receivers, flawless day. I say flawless. I think Xavier Capers was out there and had something he could have done and didn't do it. But they ruled that uncatchable, I think. For the most part, flawless day from the wide receivers. You love to see it. You love to see it.
You do. And Capers was the intended guy on the interception.
That's what it was.
I don't know what he could have done in that scenario. Yeah. If I'm him, I'm questioning why did Bo throw it to me? You know what I mean?
He wasn't open.
No, I don't put that on Capers. Capers tried to get to the ball. It's just he was boxed out. Great defense by Brown, I think, was who picked it off. So, whatever. And that was a bad play by Nix, but still, that may have been his best game I've seen him play. He was incredible. I know there's going to be a lot of attention on LSU. We'll talk about Bo Nix more in a moment. Hey, today's show brought to you by our great friends at Prize Picks, prizepicks.com. Prize Picks is daily fantasy, specifically college fantasy, made easy. They've got college and pro sports, but they have daily college fantasy like no one else. And so be sure to check these guys out. Prize Picks offers any prop that you can think of, from yardage to touchdowns, even interceptions thrown. And so all of the folks listening to this that go and sign up at Prize Picks, be sure to enter promo code Locked On. You'll receive a 100% instant deposit match for up to $100. You can pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on an entry. It's just you versus the projected numbers. You don't have to worry about competing with anyone else. So don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com. Use promo code Locked On, or go to the App Store and download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Also, today's show brought to you by our good friends, our local friends here in Auburn, Opelika, and Lee County. Fetch Me. Fetch Me Home Delivery. They are the best in the business as far as getting whatever you want delivered to you, whether it's your home or your office, or if you're just visiting friends. They're going to take care of you because they actually care about the user experience. And if you have a problem, you have to like call a number and talk to a human being. So it's pretty nice. And they're Auburn people, and the folks that are driving and are fetchers for Fetch Me are actual employees. They're not just like contractors. So be sure to check them out. They actually care about the whole experience. We used them this weekend to get food delivered to us after the game because we didn't feel like it, and it was great. It was fantastic. So go to fetchmedelivery.com, or you can download their free app. Just search Fetch Me Delivery in your phone's app store. And when you place an order for more than $30, use promo code Local Meal, and it'll save you some money. And it'll tell them that we sent you. So fetchmedelivery.com, free Fetch Me app, and use promo code Local Meal. Lindsay Crosby, I'm going to ask the question: is Bo Nix elite?
I think at this point in time, right now, you have to say he's one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC.
I would put him as the third best quarterback in the SEC right now.
Okay. Who do you have in front of him?
Bryce Young and Corral.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that, especially watching, Matt Corral make it happen on Saturday against Tennessee, watching Matt Corral a little bit against Arkansas in that shootout they had 2 weeks ago. Hard to argue against that. Bryce Young, I'm on that train of I don't think Bryce Young is as good as everybody says he is, simply because he has so many NFL guys around him that we just, until proven otherwise, we have to assume he's good, but I don't think we actually know that for a fact. He hasn't really been challenged. The only game they lost, arguably they lost because of the defense, not because of the offense. So, but yeah, Bo Nix right now has to be considered the third best quarterback in the conference, with the possibility of going up if Bryce Young stumbles a little bit. I do think Matt Corral probably is better than him. The question I have for you now, based off of Bo Nix being elite, and all offseason, I've been saying one way or the other, I thought this was the last season Bo Nix is going to be the starter at Auburn, simply because if he was good, he'd leave and go pro. If he was bad, Harsin would make a move to put somebody else in. Does Bo Nix stick around for another year if he plays like he did against Arkansas and like he has to this point in the season?
I think so, because I don't think he's quite good enough to get drafted high, like where he would want to go.
Right.
But I think if he puts a full season's worth of tape like he did against Arkansas, heck, and maybe if he plays like he did against Arkansas or LSU for the rest of the season, or even Georgia, I don't think the NFL is going to fault him based on how he played against Georgia with all those drops. But I think if he continues playing like this for the rest of the season, he may have enough stuff on tape where NFL teams may be interested. I don't think so.
Right.
But this could be a best case scenario for Auburn, where Bo Nix finally hit his stride year 3. And he's like, no, I want to do this. And maybe, and we're going to talk about Auburn's chances in the SEC West in the final bit of today's show, but he may get so close in the Iron Bowl where like the Iron Bowl sets up as an SEC West championship game. And, he may want more of that and choose to come back and kind of look at this team. And it's like, all right, I'm losing the offensive line, but that's it on my offense. Both running backs are coming back. All the receivers other than Demetrius Robertson are coming back. Like, there's a lot to like about Auburn's offense next year if Bo Nix kind of keeps this trend going. So I think with him being a top 3 quarterback in this league. Corral will be gone. He'll be the number 2 guy. The state of Alabama will have the 2 best quarterbacks in the SEC if he chooses to come back. So, yeah, I think Bo Nix is in the best situation he's been in while here at Auburn. And man, what a pivot from a guy that, a few weeks ago got benched against a nobody. And, people were asking, is he going to start at LSU? And then he has the best game of his career at LSU. And then I think he handled his business fine against Georgia. I know a lot of people still think he threw the ball too hard, which I think we saw yesterday is ridiculous. And then what he did against Arkansas. There's a lot to like about where Bo Nix is right now.
The book on Bo Nix before the benching was Bo Nix is a quarterback that's too inaccurate, that bails from the pocket too much, and can't make it happen on the road. And ever since he got benched, he's made it happen on the road.
Yep.
He stayed in the pocket when he's needed to and only escaped when he had to.
Right.
And he escaped to keep plays alive and to get the ball downfield. And his completion percentage, or adjusted completion percentage in the case of Georgia, has been high 70s, low 80s in every game since then. And so he's taken all of the major knocks on him and fixed them. And kind of like you, I think that he did it late enough in the season where there's probably not going to be enough on tape for him to be confident he's going to go in the draft where he wants to go. And so there's a very good chance he comes back for next year. There's a very good chance that he sticks around. I don't know how many of the offensive line guys are super seniors versus guys who could use that extra year and come back. But either way, we do have some bodies there. Probably could get a transfer or 2 coming in. And I do think this sets up well for Bo coming back to make one final push next year. And if he does, you have to assume Auburn's going to be one of the preseason favorites to win the West, along with Alabama, obviously, because it's Alabama.
Sure.
And would definitely be in contention all season for the SEC championship and a chance at a playoff spot.
Right. And I just think the national narrative around Bo Nix has shifted. I mean, going into the season, and even after Georgia State when he got benched, he was seen as this inconsistent, you never know what you're going to get type of player. And now, I mean, you heard it in the broadcast yesterday. People are talking about him as he's the magician Bo Nix, because he can kind of work out magic at any given play.
Bo-Cephas football.
Yeah. The narrative about Bo Nix is totally changed. It's totally shifted. And I think that's something that Auburn fans have I think Auburn fans are kind of in the middle of it, right? They're seeing every stage happen so slowly. But I think if you zoom out, and I'm going to try to do this throughout the bye week this week and have some national writers or conference wide writers talk about it. But I think the narrative's changed about Bo, and props to him. The mental toughness that it takes, and the mental toughness of this kid to ignore all of the crap happening outside of the locker room is awesome. And all these narratives about how, the team doesn't like Bo Nix, like we've heard that from Chandler Wooten. I mean, we all saw his face. It's the perks of these interviews being on YouTube now, where it's like you see him smiling, the team captain, the leader of this football team, voted by the team, Chandler Wooten. These guys love Bo, and just seeing them get excited and all of that whenever he succeeds, I think we can put this narrative to bed. So I think Bo is the 3rd best quarterback in the conference right now, and he has a chance to go up against the best quarterback in the conference in 2 weeks. And Auburn fans should like this SEC West showdown that's about to be brewing, especially because Ole Miss has to play LSU this weekend. And look, maybe LSU is rebounding. Those guys will do anything to fight for Ed Orgeron, and they somehow beat Florida, which is crazy.
Wow.
So, maybe they give Ole Miss as much of a run as they possibly could, while Auburn's sitting back, recovering, watching tape, prepping for Ole Miss. Auburn's in a good spot, because I think if they beat Ole Miss, they can beat A&M. And I know people want to act like Mississippi State's relevant. I just have a hard time respecting them as a team. And then South Carolina, they beat Vanderbilt by like a point or something, if I recall. So it took like a last second thing. So it's just, this is a good situation for Bo Nix and the Auburn Tigers to be in.
Yeah. This is everything we could have hoped for and more, I think, in year one of Brian Harsin. I mean, we saw predictions all over the board. We saw people thinking 9-3. We saw 10-2. We saw 5-7 and 6-6.
Right.
And like I pointed out in last week's show, to be at this point of the season, to be in contention to win the division and and compete for the conference championship, that's more than you could ask for in year one with a brand new everything, a brand new brand new coordinators, brand new head coach, a quarterback who coming into the season, we didn't know if he would even be the starter or not. This is everything we could have possibly wanted, and Auburn fans should enjoy this. You should savor this bye week. Go do something fun this weekend, and let's get ready for Ole Miss, knowing that we control our own destiny from this point forward.
I want to take a second to tell you about the best tasting protein bar on the planet, Built Bar. What is my favorite flavor of Built Bar? I know you've been wondering. I like the peanut butter brownie. It is my favorite. It's you hear that, and even if you took a bite into it and taste it, it's like, man, there's no way this is good for you. Well, it is. It is. It's high in protein, 17 grams of protein, around 130 calories, and just 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs. It fits into any diet, and it's delicious. It's a great post-workout snack or just kind of a pick-me-up in the afternoon if you need it. Check it out. Built.com is where you need to go, and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your first order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Final few minutes of this Money Monday with the Auburn banker himself, Lindsay Crosby. Yeah, Auburn controls its own destiny moving forward. And we kind of already talked about their situation, but obviously a bye week, and then you host Ole Miss, and then you go to Texas A&M. And I think if you take care of business there, you can beat Mississippi State at Jordan-Hare Stadium, and then you can go to a South Carolina team. And I think by that point of the season, they're going to be giving up on this season. And then obviously you host Alabama in the Iron Bowl at home. So I like where this stacks up. I think it's very, very exciting for Auburn fans. If they can win in 2 weeks, I think it kind of just projects where the rest of the season is heading for them.
Yeah, watching this Ole Miss game on Saturday night, this team is beatable. They're inconsistent. You've seen they're very dependent on Matt Corral. Yep. And so it's going to be, can we slow down and contain that offense? And I have more faith in our defense now than I did a month ago. I'm starting to feel like this defense can do more to force you into doing things you don't want to do on offense and can limit what you try to do. Just watching what they did against KJ Jefferson on Saturday, how they just kept trying to run the ball with KJ Jefferson. They kept trying to do stuff, and we kept slowing. We didn't stop them, but we slowed them down enough where they weren't able to get into a rhythm on offense outside of that middle eight. And so then our offense was able to hold the ball when they needed to. I think we had the ball for 12 and a half minutes of that final quarter. And so having watched, I pulled the stat up. I want to say it's
that's crazy.
Yes. I mean, and we were talking about that. Like our offense or our defense was on the field almost the entire third quarter, because that scoring drive was a one-play scoring drive. Pulling it up, 12 minutes and 4 seconds possession in the fourth quarter is what we held the ball for.
Wild.
And so I think that the schemes are starting to click on both offense and defense to the point where we can go out there and affect what they want to do more than they can affect what we're trying to do. Bo Nix has proven to be consistent enough passing the ball, and that's a phrase I never thought I'd say, where we can reliably count on being able to put up the points we need. And Derek Mason's defense is starting to show as these guys get more comfortable in these schemes. And there's still individual issues, and I don't want to trash too many guys, but there's still individual issues we see out there. One of them named Smoke Monday. But this offense and this defense are starting to come together where I feel confident that we can limit Matt Corral and what he's trying to do, while we can score enough points to beat Ole Miss. And then after that, your real next big question is, which A&M team do you get? And then what do you do against Alabama? So you have to feel good about the rest of the season after what we've seen from this team the last few weeks.
The defense, something is off. But I think the good news is it's really only the secondary, because The thing that made Auburn's defense so good over the last several years is the short stuff, it's the quarterback gets the ball, then throws it to to a receiver, like a Y smoke or something like that. An X smoke is and just these quick passes behind the line of scrimmage. They're not getting them with the first guy. They're not going down at initial contact. They're going down either 4 yards or 7 yards or 12 yards past first contact, because sometimes they're making a guy miss, or sometimes, they're not wrapping up and bringing guys down. And that's what I'm going to guess they're working on during the bye week, is just fundamental stuff like getting guys down at first contact, because that's very important if you're going to win football games. But that's what Steele's defenses were so good at. And part of that was because they played closer to the line of scrimmage, and that's going to happen. There's benefits of playing close to the line. There's benefits of playing far back. Now, the benefits you should get from playing off the line of scrimmage, I don't know if we're getting those, because the whole that should eliminate, some of the intermediate passing lanes, and guys are wide open, 10 to 15 to 20 yards downfield at times. So I don't know if that's really working or not. I'm curious to see if that kind of changes over the course of the bye week, now that you have time to install new things, especially with Ole Miss coming up. I mean, if you play like you have against Ole Miss's passing game, they're just gonna churn you up. They're just gonna 12 yard you to death. And I think they'll change that. I hope they'll change that. The pass rush is getting better, because Arkansas's offensive line is pretty good. So I think what we saw there with Colby Wooden, that may have been his best game of the season. Ekuliota seems to be, Ekuliota seems to be consistent. Derek Hall seems to be, kind of emerging. And so I don't know. Marcus Harris is impressive, scored a touchdown, which is great. But yeah, I just something's got to change on this defense. And a lot of it is just tackle the guy when you make contact with him. That's the biggest thing. And, people want to, analyze scheme and, all that. But it really, technique is the issue here. I don't know if it's Derek Mason's new defensive philosophy. Now, is it on him to make sure the guys can tackle at contact? Yeah. Yes, it is. But is it his new scheme that's ripping everything apart, where it's zone. It's I don't think it's really the zone. I think it's just, it takes multiple guys to bring everyone down on a consistent basis. But I mean, I don't know. Guys are still open, but why is that happening? But yeah, I think we're going to see a different defense come out against Ole Miss.
And we have seen the defense go and recover and make adjustments after a bad, say, first quarter, or one receiver getting open quite a bit. I think to the LSU game, I think back to the Arkansas game, where there's one guy, this is the strength of their pass catching core. And we make adjustments to limit that guy after the first quarter or after the first drive or whatever. But I think one of the things that I want to see is maybe a little bit of shuffling around of pieces. Watching some of Donovan Kaufman's angles from the slot, he had a couple situations on Saturday where it's a quick pass to the flat, and he maybe took the wrong angle because he's trying to undercut the block versus going over the top.
Yeah.
I think maybe moving some guys around. I'd like to see Donovan Kaufman playing more safety versus corner, maybe giving some of these different cornerbacks a chance to, to either come inside. But for the most part, it's not the scheme. And the only real question that I have about the scheme, you mentioned the intermediate passes. Those are still there, which you'd think that's sort of the benefits of playing off. But also playing a lot more zone and playing off, you'd think you'd see a little bit more interceptions than you do. I think the only real interceptions we've seen have been the end of games on a broken play or a desperation heave. And so, kind of curious, are we going to clean those things up during the bye week? The intermediate routes, watching the quarterback getting some interceptions, getting guys on the ground, maybe go with the rugby style tackling. But all in all, the pieces are there. You see the defense improving every week.
Right.
You especially see the pass rush coming around. Like you said, Ekuliota, man. I mean, at this point, he has to be considered the best incoming transfer of the offseason so far.
You think so?
I mean, Marcus Harris had a great game. I think he had 6 tackles, tackle for loss. Leota 3 tackles and a sack and another quarterback hit. But Leota has to be one of your better incoming transfers, simply because of the impact he had with the question of how would he do translating from the conference he played into the SEC. Yeah. He's got to be one of the better transfers, if not one of the best transfers incoming for this year. I'd love to hear who you think it is if it's somebody else. And there's probably a good argument for 2 or 3 guys, but he's got to be one of the better ones.
I mean, over the past few weeks, it probably has been Eku. I think Demetrius Robertson has an impact on the offense, but I guess you're probably right. It probably is him. I think Kaufman's been good, but has he been better than Eku over the last few weeks? Probably not. So I'll give you that. I'll give you that. One last thing, and then I'll let you get to those stats that you mentioned if you haven't gotten to them all. But talking about the defensive backfield, Roger McCreary is so good.
Oh my
gosh. I've been saying that all year, and a lot of people had DM'd me and tweeted at me and stuff saying bro, he's not that good. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't know what else you want to see from a corner that's kind of being used differently than his strengths are. But man, Roger McCreary, I just don't think we're appreciating him enough while he's here. The NFL is going to scoop him up, and the NFL is going to love him and pay him a lot of money because he is very good at playing outside corner. So just enjoy Roger McCreary while we have him, because I don't think there's a clear next guy. There's been a clear next guy since Carlton Davis to Jamel Dean and Noah Igbenogany and then Roger. But I think that chain's going to be broken, sadly, unless we get a pretty good transfer coming in. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. Shout out Roger McCreary. Love you so much.
Roger McCreary has definitely been as good as advertised, and we may not see it, but the people who do this for a living, who do football personnel for a living, who prepare draft boards, they have seen it, and that's what's important. He's going to get a good grade when he sends in for evaluation, and he's going to go pro, and he's going to make a bunch of money.
Yep.
We've covered a lot of the stats, but I do want to point out, so rough middle eight, we knew that. You always hate to see a team double up on you where they score at the end of the first half and again coming into the second half.
Right.
But Auburn did step up after that. We talked about they had the ball a lot of the third quarter. And I already touched on, we had the ball for over 12 minutes of the fourth quarter. Arkansas's last 6 possessions of the game: punt, forced fumble, turnover on downs, touchdown, punt, turnover on downs. So we saw something where against Georgia, we saw where our defense got worn down. We saw where that game kind of got away from us late, and they just started doing stuff. This Auburn defense specifically played for a full 60 minutes, and they really owned the fourth quarter. Arkansas's total yardage in the fourth quarter, 35 yards.
You love that.
Possession for 2 minutes, 56 seconds, 35 yards. They rushed for 13. They were 2 of 6 passing for 22 yards. So Auburn's defense stood up when it mattered. Auburn's defense, outside of that middle eight, this was an Auburn game from beginning to end. And as important as that middle eight is, fast start, good finish will outweigh a middle eight every day.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Lindsay Crosby, where can people find you and hear you?
I am at Auburn Banker on the socials and in our Discord, and you can listen to me 7 to 9, Monday through Friday on NewsTalk WANI.
Yes. Tomorrow is a Charlie Tuesday. Be sure to tune in to hear what all he has to say. I'm sure he has a lot of thoughts about what happened on Saturday moving forward in the bye week and all that good stuff. And a whole lot more coming your way. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're not watching on YouTube and listening on the podcast, go to YouTube and subscribe. Trying to grow that would mean a ton. Appreciate it. And we'll be back tomorrow right here on Locked On Auburn.